Hey toy fans, adult collectors of Star Wars that is, Aaron here, today taking a look at the Power of the Force release of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Came out in 1995 on that red card back, was later released on the green card, freeze frame card, the body was molded a few times for the Cinema Scenes release, and I think the Power Effects release also, but today just focusing on this 3 3/4 inch version. Card's looking good, Darth Vader in the upper left corner. On the right side, you got your figure along with, in this case, a long lightsaber. There was a few variations of those. Long lightsaber, short lightsaber, and long tray. On the back side of the card, top half, you got an index cutout giving you a lengthy write-up about Obi-Wan Kenobi, giving you his height, status, classification, and a lot of other information. Bottom half of the card, you're getting a look at the handful of figures that were released alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi, along with the various vehicles that you could also find on the shelves at that time. Taking a look at the figure out of the packaging, and overall, for its time, pretty decent looking figure. As everyone well knows, the figures in this line, especially at the launch, were very beefy, very bulky looking, and surprisingly, this particular Obi-Wan Kenobi figure didn't get that treatment. Not saying that like it's a bad thing, but it is interesting how they skipped out doing that on Obi-Wan. Looking in on the head sculpt, things not too bad. I mean, it's not an entirely accurate portrait of Sir Alec Guinness, but on the other hand, you can still easily look at this figure and it's identifiable as Obi-Wan Kenobi, I guess, because, well, it's an old white guy with a gray beard, and certainly the nice outfit on this figure being very representative of his costume just helps all of that along even further. I like the flesh tones being used here, very nice peachy color. Sculpting for the hair is looking pretty decent, beard is well done, and all that gray painting is staying right where it needs to be. He does have some very big blue eyes going on though, a little too big, but you know, I mean, we are talking about a figure done in 1995, so we'll let the big blue eyes pass. I like that they even managed to give a little white dot right in the center of the blue. Going for the rest of the figure, upper half, well, actually we'll start on this cloak, his outer part here. This is done in a shell that slips over the head. You can easily slide it off. Does not give you anything that you'd really want to, display proudly on your shelf, since the arms of the figure are still done with his brown robe, so things really don't match up with this off. But with the long slits down the side, I will say it does certainly give you plenty of leg room, which you're going to need to help get this figure to stand up. It's not very well balanced if you're trying to get his feet to lay flat on the floor. So you really got to get creative with your leg positioning. Otherwise, though, this entire robe piece is sculpted very well. Nice layers of fabric being molded in there, a little bit of folds being done. Pretty nice off-white color being done for his inner robes, and then that brown coming through from the shirt that he's got molded onto the figure itself. Darker brown for the belt, with a bit of I'd say maybe a dark bronze being done for the belt buckle. For the most part, all those various colors of the painting are very well placed, not bleeding over the edges all that much, really. He had some nice layering of the tabards as it flows down towards the bottom of the cloak. Certainly gives it some good dimension. Back side of the cloak, you got some nice draping of his hood that's folded down. Obviously, nothing that you're going to lift up over the head, but it's got enough dimension going on to know that you do have a hood that's folded back on the figure. As for the arms, decent sculpting, nothing overly dramatic, some soft, subtle folds around the bend of the elbow within the fabric. Hands, probably a little bit too large, but it's pretty much par for the course for the figures in that time frame. Unfortunately, the skin tone painting of the hands does not match up at all with his face. Two very different colors going on. So get down to the bottom half of the figure, you do see a little bit of the legs creeping out, more so for his right leg. Decent sculpting for the pant legs. Again, nothing dramatic, as I said earlier, just soft, subtle folds of the fabric. Helps give the figure a little bit of dimension. Legs are sculpted in a bit of an action-oriented pose. And as I mentioned earlier, that does make him a little bit difficult to get standing up. And then sculpting for the boots, pretty decent, light brown paint. Have a little strap running around the top part of the boot. And that's about all there is to say about that. As for articulation, head's going to swivel a full 360. Arms do rotate all the way around. Full swivel at the waist. And your legs come pretty much straight out, and they do bend all the way back. As far as accessories, it does come with a single lightsaber, and what you are looking at here is the shorter version. Sliding it in next to the one I have on the card, you can see the differences between the long saber and the short saber. I think it was a pretty good call to shorten it up. Nice blue color for the blade, and then sculpting for the hilt is pretty close to being Obi-Wan's lightsaber. It's got enough identifiable markings being done to help let it show through that it's his, with the way the top part of the hilt's being done where the lightsaber comes out. On the side of the hilt, you can see you got that little slider sculpted in there. And then even at the base, you got his little pokey bits showing out or whatever. So like I said, not the most, detailed looking lightsaber, but once again for 95, not too shabby. So overall for me, it's not that bad of a figure, even today. I mean, at a quick glance, it's certainly identifiable as being Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wish it would stand up better and not have such a weird looking pose just to make that happen. And all in all, for me, for this being the welcoming of Star Wars figures back on the toy shelves after a very lengthy absence, it was a pretty decent upgrade to the vintage version of Obi-Wan Kenobi.